show today. So hopefully going to get around to everyone, see what everyone's doing, what they've got to say. Feel free if you want to make fun of my name or my attire or my show today. So receding hairline. Some rules just for everyone. If they wouldn't mind, no cell phones. If you could mute your cell phones. Your microphone if you're not speaking, just because we haven't paid our Dolby noise reduction fee. So if you're not speaking, might mute your microphone. We're going to try and get around to everyone. Anything else I need to mention before we get moving, Mr. Peter?
No, take it. You got it.
Cool. Hey everyone, how you all been this last month?
Bored.
Bored and cold, I bet.
Yeah, we're getting snow tomorrow.
Lucky you. Wish I had some here.
Well, you can. I'll send some. I'll send some to you.
Snow sucks.
I've already got some right there. You can see it's the white out there.
Yeah, I see it.
All right. So what I'm going to do this time around is just give the floor to whoever has stuff they want to talk about or demonstrations they want to do or whatever. So I think it's probably fair to kick off with Mr. Quinton Barnes. How you going, Quinton?
Oh, great.
All right, you have the floor.
All right. I had a few things I wanted to cover. One is CW2 DMK. You know, I've been the caretaker of it since Tim Mann passed it to me. And I did my first release last month of it, binary release, and I put it on GitHub. I did put it in the chat channel, but didn't have a chance last time to speak about it. So anyone who's interested can go check out the release notes. I'll put the link again in the chat. There you go. It's been tested on Linux and works pretty well. And it's been tested somewhat on MS-DOS using MK4s. So for those, if anyone wants to try it out with their MK4 or any of the other cat weasels, please have at it. And if you have any suggestions for it, I made up a survey to ask people about the floppy controllers they use, because I wanted to expand the software to cover more than cat weasels, possibly including a grease weasel. And I put together a poll, but so far I've gotten pretty limited responses. So I'm hoping folks here who use those smart floppy controllers will take a look at the poll and help me figure out what direction to take the software in the coming year. And I didn't know if anyone had any questions on those two things before I jump to another third one.
Grease weasel, please.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I was thinking of changing the CW2 DMK into FD2 CMK and be able to support multiple floppy disk controllers, including the grease weasel, which I have, and I also have the CryoFlux as well. So in theory, maybe I could get the software far enough along to support all three. But yeah, the grease weasel looks great. I haven't had a chance to tinker with it yet. Okay. Okay. And anything else on those two items? Okay. I had another thing come up, and there are some hardware folks here. So I was curious how many people here know what the Quartus software is that's used for compiling microcontroller code for the Altera line. Does anyone use it? Okay, we have at least one.
Yeah, I do. I do as well. I don't have video on, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I've used it too.
As the creator of the cat weasel wants to fix a few bugs in the microcontroller code for it that's running a Altera ASICS 1K, but it needs the Quartus 2 version 9.0 or earlier. And I was wondering if anyone dealing with these older microcontrollers and how you deal with it when Intel drops your microcontroller from the Quartus package, like they did with the ASICS 1K.
So did they drop Neos is what you're saying?
Neos?
Neos was if you're going all the way back, when you say processor, I'm assuming you're talking about the internal FPGA processor.
Yeah, the FPGA. Sorry, I was using microcontroller. I kind of blurred that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an FPGA with the A61X.
Okay, so what you're looking for is
AAL
software. You're looking for the software for Quartus that goes back to that family, correct?
Yeah, which requires 9.0 or earlier.
Yep, and can't remember. I think a lot of those require license files. God, it's been a long time.
It's also a complicating factor.
And that's going to be a whole different problem for you. And yeah, I deal with this. I'm mostly a Xilinx person, and yep, they finally started creating virtual VMs to handle the older software flows for parts that are still in production, but they don't have anything for older stuff as well. So your best bet is you're probably going to have to hack a license file, which is going to be fun. And then do you have the original software? I may have it.
Well, no, because it wasn't me. It's Jen Schoenfeld who made it, and he was just kind of stuck. And I said, well, I'll see if I can ask around. And
oh, so you're saying you don't even have the HDL code for it?
Oh, no, we have the AHD.
Oh, okay.
He has that. We don't have he doesn't have the Quartus 2 or the license file as far as he knows.
Okay. Can you drop an exact version in the chat box and I'll look?
Of the Quartus software?
Yeah, what version? And
yeah,
there's so many releases.
According to the Intel website, that's the last version that will support the Altera ASICs 1K.
And is that not available or?
Right. I found a note on the Intel website that as of last summer, they used to make the older versions of the compiler available, but as of last summer, they dropped doing even that.
Yep.
I did find some copies of it around on the net, which, assuming they haven't been hacked or messed up in some way, seems to be available, but you got the license file problem on top of that.
Yep. Okay, Quinton, I'll take it offline and let me look.
Okay, great.
I don't want to hijack the meeting, but
okay,
I understand your need.
There you go. There's my email address. You can send it there.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the three things I wanted to get in. Thanks. Back to you, Peter.
Thanks, Quinton. All right, who's next? I was going to say, Peter Phillips, you had a question. I saw you hold it up. What was it? You're muted, buddy.
That was just a test.
Okay.
Maybe Pete wants to do his announcement first, and then I can follow up.
Certainly.
COBOL.
Nice background, by the way. Is that your backyard?
It's at Creston, British Columbia. Used to be my backyard.
Awesome.
Before we get to my item, and Peter's going to have a follow-up on it, we have a few other folks who want to give some presentations. I think Arno, you can go next.
Sure.
Arno?
Yes, yeah, I muted myself. Well, I wanted to give some quick updates on Pocket TRIS and TRIS IO for the Model 1. And I guess some of you know that I'm in the education business. So I guess for me, having slides is kind of like compulsory. So I'm going to share my screen and just throw in a couple of quick slides here. Let me just enable screen sharing. So the sad thing is that my day job right now doesn't leave me much time to work on it myself. So I am just going to report on the work that other people have done. And credit goes to Andrew Quinn and Matt Boyton. And first I want to talk a couple of things about TRIS IO for the Model 1. You may remember during Trash Talk 7, I introduced TRIS IO for the Model 1, and Matt has been playing with it. He found a very subtle synchronization issue with the TRS-80 for the Model 1 that we're going to fix in the next PCB update. But maybe those of you who don't know, so TRS-80 for the Model 1 is basically just a general purpose input-output card for the Model 1. Connects to the 40-pin expansion port connector. It is basically a quinterface plus FRET, but it also has some other capabilities. So Pete, for example, contributed a networking API, TRSNIC, that allows you to open sockets and connect to arbitrary servers. There is a file system API. There's the retro store, an app store for TRS-80 apps. At the heart of it is an ESP32 microcontroller down here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I'm just hovering over it here right now. And I wanted to mention one thing that is going to be in the next update. And sorry for just putting on some timing diagrams. So those of you who have played with the Z80, you've probably seen this before here. It's essentially like a memory read and write cycle for the Z80. And if you look on the, can you see my mouse here when I hover my mouse over my screen here? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So here on the left, you can see the memory read cycle, and it all happens that the Z80, when it wants to read from RAM, it puts the memory request to active low, and then it says, okay, I want to read as well. All goes down here. And then the periphery has to then respond by the T3 cycle. Now these microcontrollers, and that's true for the ESP and also for the PIC that's in the FRET. What they do is they assert the wait signal here during T2, and that basically puts the Z80 CPU in a little holding pattern, and it gives the PIC, the microcontroller, a little bit more time to respond. That's what both the FRET and also TRS-IO do. But there's one little interesting thing here. If you look at the write cycle here, so when the Z80 wants to write, you can actually see that the write active also goes down during the T2 cycle here. So basically that's too late to assert a wait signal here. And both the quinterface and also TRS-IO implement an auto boot. So basically when the TRS-80 Model 1 boots up, that it serves a boot sector. But how can you do that if you cannot intercept memory write cycles? Well, what TRS-IO and also quinterface do is we just simply ignore write cycles. So basically, whenever we see a read, we just assume that's the read coming from the ROM. And so, for example, like select drive 0 here, we never see this here. Neither quinterface nor TRS-IO ever sees that. But once we see that you're doing a read from the floppy disk controller, we just simply serve the 256 bytes that belong to the boot sector. Now, if I go back here to the timing diagram, you can see that memory requests does go down during T1 here. So what if you were to just assert a wait signal the moment you see memory request going low? And the first problem is that the I/O bus for the Model 1 does not, at least not seemingly, put memory requests to the expansion port. But then Matt Boyton pointed out that, well, if you take a look at the schematics here, actually the row axis strobe signal is essentially, if you follow it back, is essentially the memory request. So so basically he did some prototyping, and then he used the RAS signal on the Model 1 to create a wait state signal. Now, some of you may know that the Z80 also is doing memory refresh for dynamic RAM. So the memory request also will go active low during memory request cycles. But then Matt found out that it doesn't matter. So even though you create a wait signal, the Z80 will just simply ignore it during memory refresh. Bottom line is that we can now reliably intercept memory write cycles. And that has some repercussions that we're going to then do for the next version of TRS-IO. Namely, this would allow to do full floppy disk emulation in TRS-IO, not just hard disk, but floppy disk emulation. And you can also do things like whatever else is memory mapped I/O. So for example, printer access. You can also then intercept those writes and do a printer port emulation. One more thing that I hope to do for TRS-IO, the ESP microcontroller has also Bluetooth that I'm not using right now. And my plan is to use Bluetooth to connect it to a game controller, so that you can also use like one of those Bluetooth game controllers to inject joystick controls, both for the Model 3 and Model 1. So that's one little thing that I have on my to-do list. That's the update on TRS-IO, and then just a few words on Pocket TRS. We also introduced that during the Trash Talk number 7. And here we're using an ESP32 to emulate basically a Model 3, but do it on a more hardware level. And you can see there are a whole bunch of I/O connectors here. So there's a VGA connector here. There's a PS2 a keyboard connector. There is a 3.5 audio jack connector. And also down here, there's the 50-pin expansion port connector for the Model 3. So the ESP also mimics the timing signals here on the expansion port. And you can go back to the Trash Talk number 7 to see Andrew gave a demo of this. But the quick update here, Andrew has been working on a revision of the PCB. And you can see that's the PCB we showed on Trash Talk number 7, and the ESP is in the center here. One issue that some people had is that the antenna here is in the center of the PCB, and the Espressive, the maker of the ESP, suggests that it should be pushed out on the edge of the board. So that's what Andrew has been working on. So for the next revision, and he tells me that the pull request is imminent. He has moved the microcontroller out to the side here, but the schematics have not changed. He has made some subtle changes. One thing that does not work reliably yet is the cassette in emulation. So basically connecting an audio signal to the audio jack and then using the cassette interface. There are some instabilities here we still have to chase down. So here's a 3D view on the next version. So we can see there's also like going to be like a nice cutout here of the PCB just to give the antenna free range. So it will just basically improve the Wi-Fi connectivity for Pocket TRS. Anyways, that's my quick update, and kudos again goes to Matt for the TRS-IO improvements, and to Andrew for the work he's done on Pocket TRS.
Oh, just a question about the cassette interface. Does that have motor control as well?
No, okay. I do it. So I'm using XTRS for. So XTRS is running for the emulation here, and I do see the motor control. But basically, what you can do is here you can just connect, for example, your iPhone to the audio jack here, and then play a WAV file. And then just like XTRS can actually sample the audio signal, and then for 500 baud at least, and then you have those flashing asterisks. I have gotten it to work sometimes, and basically, when you then do it on Pocket TRS, you would then, if I play from my laptop or from my smartphone a WAV file, then you would see the flashing asterisks, but it does not work reliably. So that's one thing that doesn't work. What does work very well is the audio out. So if you play a game here that creates audio signal, then you can connect that same audio connector here to a portable whatever, like a speaker, and then you would actually hear then the audio, the game sound. So that works quite well. So the one thing, and it's the sampling. I have to look at. I'm using analog to digital conversion to sample the WAV file here, and there's something fishy going on. We haven't quite figured out what's going on there.
So one of these, to try out one of these, because more and more people are starting to ask me about them.
Yeah, it's what do I say, usages. I guess, I mean, I know most of you guys are into collecting hardware, but I guess the reason for doing this here might be, for maybe for display purposes. If you go on a show and you don't want to schlep your hardware along. But I think maybe the biggest point I see is here as a testing environment. If you test I/O hardware. So if you go back to treasure number 7, Andrew Quinn, actually he connected a fret to the expansion port here, and then basically having 2 cards, and it works, and it's kind of nice. But I can see some additions later on where you can write some software for Pocket Tris to help you debug your external hardware that connects to the I/O port here. That's might be maybe one more reason for doing this here, except having some fun.
And of course, taking this thing on vacation is much easier than carrying a 4P with you everywhere.
Yeah, my last bullet. That's my last.
When I go on vacation, I only ever take a Model 4P with me.
Yeah.
And Geordie.
There you go.
So I just got one of these. Kyle was kind enough to build one for me because I never would have the time to actually build it. I just got it yesterday, I think. I haven't even, it's the first time I'm really looking at it. So how long is it going to take me to get from this to a running TRS-80 on this? Give me like the 30-second summary of what I need to do.
You connect the VGA, you connect the PS2, and that's it. Then just power it up, and that's it. It will give you the basic prompt, with the cassette interface. Now, I have the ESP, the firmware has an integrated TRIS I/O. So you don't need to connect a fret on the outside. So if you then scan the Wi-Fi, you will see the usual TRIS I/O SSID. So then you can configure it and you can point it to an SMB share, and then you can then also do the fret thing without connecting anything. But the 60-second boot up thing is connect VGA, connect PS2 mouse, power it up, and you will see the basic prompt.
Cool.
And the next step would be to connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot, point it to your SMB, and then you can also then boot up new DOS, LDOS, whatever you want.
If you connect the Fred to it directly, does it boot through the Fred automatically?
So there is, Pete, maybe also, I need to write some documentation. So on the keyboard, if you hit F3, you will get a configuration screen. By default, the built-in TRIS I/O is disabled, and it will try to connect to something that's connected to the external port. So Jay, if you connect a fret, it will immediately work out of the box.
Okay.
If you want to use the internal TRIS I/O, you also have to enable it by hitting F3, and then there's a checkbox where you can say enable internal TRIS I/O. And then it will disable the external port, and it will just basically, whenever the modified ROM is trying to boot load the fret ROM, it will just do it internally. So remember, Pete, F3 keys.
The other question I have is this I can't remember when we would discuss this last time. Is this a kit, or is it pre-assembled, or what?
It's, I'm an academic, so if I wanted to make money, I guess I should have go about this in a different way. But everything is open source. If I just share, actually, I'm gonna put the
like a build materials, maybe a build materials list or something.
Yes, for Pocket Tris there is. And for TRIS I/O, there's not yet for the Model 1, but there's one for the Model. Is there one for the Model? I don't know. I need to work on documentation. But if you have any questions, just shoot me an email if you have any questions. So it's and some people are building them and sending them off. Pete mentioned that he got his from Kyle. I know Matt is also building some up. Go to Matt if you want one. He is. He can. I should mention that Pocket Tris is a little trickier to build because we're using surface-mounted components, and ESP is kind of okay. But if you look at some of the port expanders and the digital potentiometer, those are not for the faint of heart. Let me just be honest. solder up those things is it takes some practice.
Maybe Kyle will build one for you.
Hey.
Thanks, Arno. That's great, mate. Pete,
great.
who's next in the pre-booked to talk?
Let's see. How about George? George Hines? You with us, bud?
George, you got
Hi,
it, buddy?
Yep. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hey, hi everyone. This is my first time on the Zoom call. So, hello. I'm
Hello.
a TRS-80 enthusiast from a long time ago, shall we say? You know, I grew up working on a neighbor's TRS-80 Model 3, and since went on to a career in software, but I've recently, over the last 3 years, started collecting. It started out innocently enough with a Model 3 that I found on Craigslist about 3 years ago. It has since progressed and crossed the line into hoarding, I think. So many of you may be able to relate to that. But my latest project is working on a Model 1, which Jay was kind enough to supply to me. It's in fantastic shape, and I've been playing around with it. One of the things I wanted to do was add Ian's auto boot ROM to it. And I've just put a post up the other day on the Vintage Computer Forum. When I was studying Ian's mod, it occurred to me that I may be able to add additional banks of RAM besides supporting 2 banks of RAM. In fact, I had received I found a second Model 1 that had these mysterious switches installed on them, one of which was an ability to switch between level 1 and level 2 ROMs. Now, that may seem kind of silly. Why would you want to switch into a definitely an inferior version of BASIC? Well, it's all a hobby, and it's just fun to, experience the level 1 BASIC environment, in my opinion. So I thought I'd combine that into a mod that allowed me to have both level 1 ROMs and Ian's auto boot ROM. So I've got some photos here I could probably share here. Let me see if I can manage to share my screen. Okay, Chrome tab. Sorry. There, can you see my screen? Yep. So if I scroll down, this is I located a pre-built header that was made by Retro Innovations, and it seems ready-made for the task of converting between an EEPROM, in this case, up to a 27C512, which is a 64K EEPROM, into a socket for the that'll work in the 8K ROM socket for the Model 1, just with some minor modifications. So here's the bottom of it. It's kind of hard to see, but there's some solder pads on the bottom with little holes in them. Those are the vias. There are 3 pads together, which provide effectively a solder jumper, and I'll show you how you can configure that in a minute. Note I had to cut this little middle support bar between the header because I can't get to the one pad, but that's not too bad. There's another view of it, and then here's a view of it when I snipped out the. There's a logic chip on there that's not actually needed in the configuration. It's really flexible. It's a neat little header that they've designed, so you can configure it any way you like. And I added a bypass capacitor. And here's a view of the header configured up, where I've I've supplied a single wire for the A13 line, which toggles between the two ROM sockets, or provides a chip select for both ROM sockets. And then the two higher order address lines, which allow me to select one of the four 16K banks out of the 64K ROM. So I can have four versions of the level 2 ROMs. And then the blue wire shooting out the side here is the chip select, which you'll see what I do with that in a minute. And then obviously a very inelegant version of being able to switch between the four versions. And that's the, let's see, the pre-modded version with the, I have a version G of the motherboard I found out, which is I think the latest. And sorry. Yeah. Okay, here's the final version installed. Apologies, try not to make you sick here. Trying to zoom in a little bit. There. Okay, so here's it installed in the one socket. And then I have the A13 wire, which is the gray wire running over. And this is the only solder I need to, the only wire I need to hard solder to the board. I try to minimize the number of sort of hand soldered attachments to the board, so I could easily revert it. And then the chip select line just runs over to a pin into the adjacent socket, and all you need to do is short them together, since it's an open collector type output, so that the shorting together is not it provides exactly what you want. And that's, I felt, was a little simpler than modifying the Z3 jumpers, more reversible. And then the three remaining wires allows me to select. And I think I have a copy of the schematic here, which is, oh, hang on a second, let me find it. Apologies for not being very organized here. The Retro Innovations gives you a nice little schematic. So this shows you how, flexible this little header is. And so all I need to do was snip out these three resistors up at the top, which are the unnecessary pull-ups, keeping two pull-ups in place. And then these are the in the middle are the three solder jumpers that you need to select so that you can connect the EEPROM to the header appropriately. And then this is the extraneous chip that you just snip out. Anyway, it all seemed to work. I just put a post on there on the forums to see if anyone else might find it. Sorry, I should note that the one downside to this is that it's a little too tall and puts a little bit of pressure on the bottom side of the case. I think it would be nice to redesign the header so you don't have to do some of these mods, and also so that you can reduce the height, and then I think it would be nearly perfect for at least the purposes of providing four banks. And then, as I mentioned in the post, I just use a single switch to toggle between level 1 and level 2. And the other switch I use to toggle between the auto brute and then the unmodified version of level 2. Hopefully that's interesting. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll pass it on to the next person.
Cool, I like it. Does can you actually shut your case, or does it put a great big bow in the main board?
I would say I can detect a very slight bow. Now, it's probably putting pressure on the PCB. I can't see that, but I can see the bottom of the case just ever so slightly bowing out. So, not happy with it. I wouldn't recommend it to my friends, but it works. I should have mentioned I was going to design my own header, and then I found this one, which is, like you can see, is just somebody really did a nice job designing a header that's really flexible for just about any kind of retro computing application. But if you just made the header just probably a 1/16 of an inch shorter, and then they do have some low profile headers, or you could customize something, and then I think you'd completely eliminate the problem.
Maybe put it on a short ribbon cable and sling it up on the top side of the computer. I mean, it's the Radio Shack way.
That's true, like the original mod. That's a good point.
You notice on the lowercase modification you got there, we moved the EEPROM up high, because if we put it directly on top of the socket, you couldn't close the case.
I hadn't noticed that, but yeah,
That's why,
a nice,
yeah, that's why the EEPROM is where it is on the lower case modification.
makes sense. I of course didn't think about this until the very end when I assembled it and had a little bit of a panic attack. But
yeah, I noticed that when I made my first CPM mapper that it worked great until I wanted to close the computer. Then I thought, well, this is not going to be the great success story I hope this thing would be. But I've since got lower profile headers and managed to get the computer to close and continue running. So that's a good thing. All right, thanks for that, George. Who's next?
I just wanted to mention, George, you're the one that created the floppy remapper, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know about that device, and this is a great new one. So I'm glad to see George is kind of coming out with these little, really helpful and convenient tools. But the floppy remapper to me has been just a great device for me to be able to switch back and forth between which drives I can boot my my Model 4 from. So now I can boot it from an HXC or flip a switch and boot it from the internal drives. So if you guys aren't familiar with that project, look it up on the BCF forum. That's a really good one too. So thanks, George.
Oh,
got
thanks.
one of those here I've been meaning to install in a system as well. It did arrive, George. I just have been a little bit tardy in keeping my projects up to date.
Yeah, it looks like
No
Patrick
worries.
was holding one up.
No worries. Yeah. And by the way, I'm hoping we go have a Tandy assembly at some point in the near future. If we have enough notice, I would be happy to make a batch of them and bring them to assembly for people if they're interested.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Speaking of that, why don't we just quickly talk about that? So Tandy assembly is scheduled for this year, for October 1st through the 3rd. So I would say, if you make reservations, make refundable plans, it's going to be in the same location, Springfield, Ohio. We have the place reserved. The only thing that's going to stop us is, what's been stopping us for the past year is this virus. So we'll have to see where we are at that time. But right now, the plan is to have it in October.
I'm going to make a speculation that actually is going to go ahead, but there's not going to be allowed international travel. Will thwart us who fly in. But for the vast majority of the people there, based in the United States, yeah, it'll go ahead. I mean, that's not going to stop me booking a ticket, but I don't trust our Commonwealth government to let us out of the country anytime soon.
What they said to get into the U.S. anyways, it needs to be for a business related flight anyways. So the only thing you could say is like, I'm flying because I'm going to go sell these products on the demos. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they'll go down well. I know.
I can't fly out the UK at the moment at all. So can't fly out the UK, can't fly in the US. So I'm screwed completely.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else on the short list, Peter?
Besides me and Peter, anyone else have something they want to bring up, present, show off at this point?
Yeah, I got something.
Okay.
Jay.
I'm now a proud member with Peter. I don't know if you can see it, but I got to get the background. Oh, anyway, I picked up from Joe. He and I worked out a nice deal, and I now am the proud owner of Tandy 3. And it's fully functional, and it works. And
Nice.
It's pretty good shape. And the case needs a little work, but I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to try painting it or anything. I'm going to leave it the way it is. The drives that are in there are a little flaky, but I picked up a real nice Model 3 as I posted on Facebook. And I'm going to take those drives out and probably put it into this and make this unit available in the future, maybe, who knows. But it's really nice to be an owner of one of the most unique machines I've ever seen in my entire life. And I want to thank Joe for that. And that's about all I have to say.
So you finally get a Tandy 3 and you're going to sell it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you never know. It's sitting here not doing anything. So I mean, but I'm not selling it now. No, obviously not.
Thanks, Jay. All right. Who's next? We're just going to go through the general roll call. Peter?
I'll present my item. I actually have a few things, but the one thing I want to present, and then Peter Phillips will follow up on it. So I picked up recently this giant software package called RM/COS. It's Ryan Mcfarland's commercial operating system. So it's a previously unarchived and missing Model 16 operating system that we haven't had before, not at least since back in the day. And it was released by Ryan Mcfarland, pretty popular name, third-party software developer back in the day, who specialized especially in developing COBOL business applications. And this is basically a COBOL operating system that they use to support their COBOL products. What's interesting about it is it's a Model 16 operating system. So if you know how the Model 16 works, it's a dual CPU machine. You have Z80 on one side, 68,000 on the other side, and they communicate through shared memory. And they developed their own version of this. So it has two runtimes, right? It has a Z80 portion that's running that they first boot load, and then that bootstraps the 68,000 side. So you basically have two operating systems running at the same time. And they did, a challenging thing to do. Microsoft did it with Xenix for the 68,000. Some of the CPM players did it as well. Even Tandy did it with Tristos 16, which wasn't a great operating system, but they did do it. And so that's what I picked up. Was really happy to find it. I archived it. It's in the Model 2 archive if you want to play with it. Since I know a lot of you don't have running Model 16s, you may want to run it in an emulator. And we know the only Model 16 emulator we have right now is the one developed by George and Peter Phillips, TRS-80 GP. But this operating system is currently not able to run on the emulator. It's only going to run on a real Model 16. And so Peter wants to talk to us a little bit about how he is trying to overcome those issues with the emulator and in general, what it takes to port, an operating system like this into the emulator. So Peter, you want to talk about it?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Pete. Sad trombone sound there. So, yeah, Pete archived this. It was pretty exciting. And then he said that the problem is it doesn't work. I'm going to share my screen here. This is going to be interactive now. And it's going to get recursive here. Hang on. Sharing. Everybody see that?
Yep.
So, the point of TRS-80 GP is to be able to run software without having the hardware. So when something new comes around, it's pretty exciting, but it didn't work. So now we've got a command line here to fire it up, run it in Model 16 mode fast, and let's see what happens. The first thing you do with a bug report is you have to understand what goes wrong. So it's booting, it's great. There's the operating system name. Z80's done. It's loaded. This is good. I don't know what's wrong. There's nothing wrong. This is fine. Taking a bit of time. Oh, wait.
There we go.
Oh, this is not so good. Not so good. Well, TRS-80 GP has lots of tracing facilities. And so George and I generated a few kind of multi-megabyte traces and took a look and identified one problem with the floppy disk that was causing it not to load the main part of the operating system. So we have a workaround for that. And the other problem is that the 68,000 though, if you saw it there, it says bus error. It's getting a crash and an exception. We took a look at this, and this brings actually to the informal title of the talk, which is what's the deal with 66FF? because this is the first crash that happens, is that it looks at a register value or returns from subroutine, and then it gets 66FF, an illegal instruction. And at this point, we kind of throw our hands up. It's like, we don't know what's going wrong. Something is wrong. Well, at least we can fix the floppy disk problem. And maybe the problem is that the operating system isn't there. So we can run that now. So the second try is like, we get the loading. That's good. Got this far. It's loaded. Oh, so close. We got to the sysdefl, which sounds pretty good. And this time, at least, it stops when it crashes. And what's going on here? It's like the PC is at 8E35, and there's a memory dump here. Oh, look at that, 66FF. This is starting to become a pattern here. So at this point, we're a little bit lost. It's like, why is it hitting this location? What does it mean? So this is the second crash. And here it is, 66FF. It says illegal. But George points out it's not really illegal. It's actually a branch. Branch, if not equal to -1. This is kind of like the JR not Z or something, or JRZ, I guess. So what happens is that it gets to 34, it goes back 1, but the 68,000 can't execute on odd boundaries. So it gets an assertion and crashes. And before then, it does a compare. It compares some memory location with 10, and then it does a branch. After some contemplation and maybe a couple sleepless nights, we kind of realized that what we're seeing is probably an assert. We thought it might be a fancy system call, but the exception handler doesn't do anything to try to recover from this. It simply crashes. So what it's saying is that this memory location has to be 10. If it's not 10, the operating system has to stop. Okay. So that doesn't really tell us what's wrong. The other thing we notice is that this is the point where the interrupts really start going between the Z80 and the 68,000. So there's a sense that it's got something to do with the interrupts. You know, interrupts cause concurrency, concurrency causes problems. But remember, it does work if you have the actual hardware. So we're stuck now. There's really nothing to do, but the problem must be at the low level, but we've got to look at the 68,000 code to see what's really going on. So we get a disassembly going and we go down to 834, and here it is. You notice there's multiple of these illegals. It's like they're definitely asserts going on here. Now, when you're trying to debug these things, it's like you can't look at too much code. There's too much code to examine. You don't know what's going on by any stretch. George pointed out, hey, look at this. You know, you're moving an address to another address and comparing with a memory location. Those are two addresses. This kind of looks like a linked list, and that makes some kind of sense. There's concurrency in a linked list, and something is inconsistent. Maybe it's a dead entry in the list, and so it crashes. I start tracing down a bit more, and I see that, okay, this is generally where we get into trouble when we get an interrupt comes along over at the top of this loop. So here's another nice little piece of code here, and we wonder like what's going on in this section. In brief, this ORing with the status register is the 68,000's way of saying stop interrupts, and this ANDing is the saying resume interrupts. So this little piece of code must not be interrupted. Well, that's the problem then. Maybe an interrupt happens here. No, we trace that. It's not an interrupt that's happening in there. Okay, well, what's it doing is, again, it's some kind of linked list baloney going on. And what's this code doing? I don't know, but there's more asserts and there's more stuff happening. And, 68,000 instructions are like real mouthfuls here. Like, what is going on? Well, I start tracing it, stepping through bit by bit. And then it occurs to me, I didn't notice this line in the first place. It's like, if these pointers aren't equal, we're going to go somewhere and the interrupts are still disabled. What's that about? So let's back up. Let's go to 8DOE. Back up. Now, and here it is. The first thing is it clears a memory location, whatever that means, and then it does stop. Okay. Now the penny drops. Stop means to stop the 68,000 and wait for an interrupt. And a real 68,000 would stop. But what if the emulated one didn't? That would cause a concurrency problem. Okay, so into the source code we go. Here we are. This is the bit of code here that is what actually does stop. And like any machine code, there's not much to it. It masks the status register and does a little bit of bookkeeping because of supervisor mode. But what it does not do, there's no side effect to stop the 68,000. Okay, time for a bit of code editing. Let's put in a stop flag there. So now if it stops, it tells it to stop. Now let's go back. This bit of code is called step. It runs one instruction. And okay, now I've added in this extra bit of code. If we're stopped, then stop. Don't go down here and run more cycles. And finally, there's one more thing we need to do, which is the point of stop that this bit of code says, if the interrupt level is high enough to take an interrupt, and we clear the stop flag. And I think that's what stop should do. Okay, this is good. Now we've got version T3. We've got the floppy disk fixed. We got stop fixed. Nothing can stop us now, pun intended. Okay, load. That's pretty exciting. This is like a whole COBOL operating system. It's an operating system. It's a database. It's got a COBOL debugger. It's got JDL. It's got everything. And here it goes. The system is starting up. This is it. There's the login banner, and there it's like that. There's something at the bottom. Well, I don't know what 4003 invalid is. Oh, something is wrong. Well, it didn't crash, but something is wrong. Okay. Now this is where it's really, really nice that that not only do we have the disk image, we have the documentation. And there's a lot of it. Like this is a 600-page user guide. And George happens to notice that, there's something about the sysdef file that we saw. It said that, column 1 is S, column 4, if this field is an A, then automatically log in. So George gets the kind of clever idea that maybe this is working, but something is happening about the login. Now, a shout out to Kyle Wadston here. The search feature was his idea, and it's pretty useful. George finds another file that's called the user def file. And now this is going to be hard to see, but in brief, what it says is we've got the name of the user, the system manager. We've got the password, which is rm/cos. And we've got this little bit of code here, which says .time. And that means the documentation explains, okay, that sets the time. Okay, well, what if we modified the disk and we took out the auto login because we think that the login process is failing, and we took out the call to set the time? Try this. Now we don't need to recompile the emulator. It's the same one that we've slightly modified. And here it goes. It's booting, JDL. Okay. It's finished starting up. Now nothing's happened because in these kind of systems, there's various keys you have to press. So we have to press the login key, which turns out to be enter. Hey, and there we go. There we've got the news file and the login. So let's log in, system manager, rm/cos. And that's it. That's the prompt. And now you got to read the documentation, but list is used for listing files or doing a directory. So we can do this and skip all that. And hey, there's files on the disk. It's working. Got to press scroll lock to continue. So we're almost done, but there's a problem. We had to edit the disk. The original disk image works. So, something's wrong. And it was about setting the time. We can run the time command here. And what does it do? It prompts. So, okay, 1984, standard 10, 10, 10. And it sets the time. But it doesn't work when you do the login. And this is kind of the end of the story here. Is like, I don't know what's going wrong now. Is there another bug in the 68,000? Is this another concurrency problem in disguise? I don't really know. So, stay tuned. We're like 90% of the way there. And
stay tuned for part 2 in Trash Talk number 12 in a month's time. Hey, Peter?
Yeah, with any luck. But
nice
I'm
work.
I
admire your dedication, though. It looks like a hell of a job. I would have pulled what's left of my hair out by now, trying to sort that out. Thanks, Peter. Okay, what are we doing, Pete? Open floor or?
Open floor.
Open floor. All right, then. I'm going to just go around. Actually, before I do that, just anyone who's got anything that they want to mention before I open the floor up, just shout out your name and I'll pass the mic to you.
Dusty.
Dusty, how you going, mate?
I'm all right. I'm sorry I was late getting here, but it's the pandemic. Blame it on everything. Just a quickie, if I may, please. If anybody is going to get an article in for TRS-80 for March, could you get it to me by the end of February, please? Anything? Looking forward to hearing about anything.
I'd like to say I've written a ton of stuff, but I haven't even started. So that's how I normally operate. So there'll be something there, Dusty.
Yeah, I have got a little problem which I've had passed on to me. So I'll come back later when everybody else has finished. Okay.
Thanks, mate.
I got something.
Ken.
So Pete wanted me to just talk briefly about the microfiche. For those who don't know, we've recovered some National Parts, Radio Shack National Parts microfiche. These are basically, there's four of these packets. These are the complete National Parts catalog. As this is March 3rd, 1993, which is really nice because it has all the old computer stuff still on it. So all the parts that were in the National Parts system for the computers are here. The other interesting thing is besides the usual stuff you'd expect, which would be like pricing, there are cross-references to vendor part numbers, as well as substitutions and so on. And often there are notes in it when a part is changed or subbed about why that happened. So there's some interesting information that can be gleaned from these. Scanning them is not going to be for the faint-hearted. There are 100 of these sheets. There are 13 down by 16 across images on here. Each image is roughly a copy or a facsimile of a large green bar page. So that means that there's over 20,000 separate images. So the only way to do this is to scan it, a sheet at a time. After Radio Shack, I became a commercial photographer, and so I did a lot of stuff. Some of it was photo reconstruction, document reconstruction, and stuff. And so I have some nice scanners, but I closed my business about 7 years ago, and so things move. I thought that they would do it, they don't. They're real close. But I'm working on it, and I think I'll have a solution. And then we'll PDF it and make it available. So that's really pretty much what my status is right now. There's not a lot to show you other than it's pretty cool. We used these a lot. The service center's got a packet or two. The central unit's got a packet or two. My department got like 3 or 4. We had 3 or 4 readers. All the stores got it. And they came out every month. So and you got really adept at using these things and finding parts. We used them all the time. Used them in my sleep. So anyway, if I do have them for the moment, and if anybody needs anything, I can take a look and look stuff up that way if there's something really pressing. So hopefully next time, I'll have a little bit more news and maybe even have start getting some files out there for everybody. So that's pretty much it, unless anybody's got any questions about it.
So did every store get a set of those microfiches every month? Is that what happened?
Yes.
And
right.
then the branch manager would just discard the previous month's ones.
That's right.
Okay.
Sometimes, we would usually keep them for like about 6 months and just rotate them through. I don't know why we did that. We didn't have to, but we did. It was just kind of what we did. I suspect other people did. I mean, there must have been hundreds of thousands of these things printed, because just, over the course of the time I was there, which was almost 15 years, these things came out every month. They went to every store, which was over 4,000 stores. Service centers, which were over 150. It doesn't include franchise. And then there were central units that would be like CPE, tech support, national QC, anybody in the towers that wanted them. And we always got multiples. So, it was a pretty big deal. But it was the only way to do it. There was no internet. And everybody did this. And so...
when I was in high school, I worked at Sears, and they did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Must have been pretty
so
common.
You would see
Sorry, Ken, that set you're holding there, would that be one of the last sort of releases before the AST acquisition, or?
Probably about 6 months or a year.
Okay.
Yeah, this was about a year before I left. So I left in April of '94. And so this is about 13 months prior to that.
Okay.
But National Parts didn't go to AST. And so, the fish continued to come out and stuff up through when I left. They probably stopped it shortly after that because the internet probably became a bit more of a thing.
Ken, how valuable do you think this information is for the current day collector and restorer? Are any of those part numbers still relevant?
I don't know. I haven't really dug into it, Pete. I think the relevance of it is that if you want to see all the parts that were available in parts that were subbed, say for the Model 2, you go to 260-4001, and they're all right there. So there's that. Is there anything earth-shaking here? No, I don't think so. But it might be a help. It's information. We've got it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just part numbers, or is there additional potential data sheets or anything like that on the fish?
No, there's no data sheets or anything. It's going to just be, part numbers. It'll be the catalog number. It'll be the part number, like an AXX number or an MX number or whatever. Then it'll have a description. It'll be like DC harness.
So similar to what we see in the service manuals, then.
Similar, but there may be additional notes because as they did subs, often they would just type something in real quick. They didn't always, but if they were really feeling nice about it, they would type something in, say subbed for, sub for a better capacitor or something, whatever reason. Like, in the hard drive capacitor, the controller capacitor that we changed because of, the drift. I think there's probably a note in there about that.
Well, there's a project for Ira for him if he wants to type in 20,000 catalog numbers, present it nicely on his website. How about that, Ira?
Yeah.
One weekend.
Well, I went through all the catalogs and did it, and I've gone through all the magazines that I had and made the table of contents searchable. But
So
I
it's
don't know
doable.
about this.
This is also this is everything. This is not just computers. This is full line too. This is everything that we sold parts for. So this would have been CB radios, stereos, the Optimus stuff, scanners, you name it. It's
That's
here.
great. That's great. I can't wait to see it, Ken. Hey, how's Cat Hardware going? Are you coming up with anything or?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you. Yeah.
What are you asking me? I missed it.
Is any new Cat hardware coming online soon? How's your projects going?
The Z180 one, the Z180 hardware, or the speed
That
up,
one.
the 5 megahertz Model 2 project, or
Keyboard adapter.
keyboard. Okay, I sent out a beta keyboard adapter to Owen yesterday, and he's going to test it. And John and I think it's really close. The Model 16 emulation is done, and this is a good test bed. And then we're already looking forward to maybe taking it to a microcontroller next. But this is just about ready to go. If anybody needs them, it's definitely usable now.
Perfect. Okay, who else? Shout out a name.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Ken. Anyone? All right, shaking his head no. Hey, Patrick, how you going?
I said no.
Okay. Nice to see you could join us today.
Yeah, I couldn't make it last week.
Last month?
Well, life. No nursing for my daughter, so it got a little complicated. I was sleeping during this particular time period last week.
Yeah.
Your shed is looking better. It's more full.
Yeah.
Well, I've been watching the video feed there. You're busy doing something. What are you working on?
Just dicking around.
Okay. That happens to the best of us. All right. Thanks, Pat. Who else we got? Mike Thomas. Yeah, you.
Oh.
Hey, Mike.
Hello.
What are you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm trying to get up to speed and be able to play with my TRS-80s.
As are we all. I've been trying to do it for 30 years.
Well, I've been a long time collector of all kinds of retro stuff, and over the years, I was able to collect a Model 3, Model 4, and a Model 12, which I was just discussing with people on the chat that it turns out, I guess, mine is more or less a Model 16, since it is pretty well upgraded, and it currently runs Xenix off of my working 15 meg hard drive.
That's the best kind of Model 12, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I completely refurbed the Model 12, so I went through and did caps everywhere. Especially needed it on the hard drive. The minute I tried to turn it on, it'd be like, roar, roar. I'm like, okay, definitely a cap problem. I did that. I also did all the keyboard replacement. So now everything's working, with the one exception of I have still not figured out the process, etc., to calibrate the 8-inch drive. So they currently won't read anything. So I'm assuming they're spinning at the wrong rate. But I don't know. I do have all of the TRS-80 books and all the manuals and floppies for Xenix, etc. I also do have, I think, some DOS. But since I can't boot those, I can't do anything except what's on the hard drive. And I pretty much have very little floppies for either the Model 3 or Model 4. So I'm doing the GoTech, and I'm also going to be building FRE HD or Free HD for all of them. And then I hope to get, and with this new, I'd love to try running this COBOL OS. That sounds like fun. But yeah, I really want to get them up, and I'd love to be able to actually run stuff on my Model 3, Model 4, and Model 12s.
Has the Model 12 got its standard disk drives?
Yes.
Okay, and they spin up. They just don't read anything.
Yeah, they fully work. They, if you try to turn it on, they come on and spin. And and light up, and if I put a disk in there, it tries to read it. It just doesn't. So
I'll just interrupt you a minute. Peter Satinsky, what would you do?
Like you're about to enter the hell that is the Tandem TM848 8-inch floppy drive. Be warned, it's an adventure.
Well, I want to do it, so I'm going there.
At least it's built up out of standard parts, so while it will be a headache, you can at least get the parts to repair them. It just might take a lot of parts.
Okay.
Is this a Model 12?
Well, here, let me.
Yeah, it is, Ken.
Let me share my photos.
FTC alignment.
Let me share my photos right there. Okay. So here's when I was working on it, refurbing it. So you can see my Model 12 apart right here, and those are the floppy drives that came with it or were in it.
Okay, there's an FTC alignment on that machine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's going to be a fun one to get to because it's underneath the card cage, but you can do it if you have a really short screwdriver.
Oh.
And off the top of my head, I don't remember how to do it, but you can look it up. The material is there. And if it's out of alignment, the drives won't read. So
Okay.
it's an easy check, and it may save you taking your drives apart, which would be a good thing.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I guess I don't have very good pictures of what's in the cage. I do have this picture, which isn't much. This was really to tell me where everything went when I went to put it back together after I took it apart. But that's one picture of what's in the cage. And I don't think, no, that's the bottom. So I guess I don't have very many pictures of the cage, but people want to know how much memory and all that. I really don't know since I didn't, I guess, pay attention to the boot. They said it's on the screen when I try to boot Xenix, but I'll look that up. But I'd also like to reach out. I'll reach out through. I'm on the Discord, and of course I'm also on the forums, etc. But I'll try to reach out at some point. I'd love to maybe get on a Zoom call with somebody or whatever, and maybe we can help me try to, work on those floppy drives. That'd be great because, like I said, I do have a lot of
Did Joel have a whole process written down somewhere? He had fought with those drives at one point on.
Yeah, there was some amplifier or something he was swapping out, wasn't there? A few capacitors and an amplifier. I just can't remember the details. Well, he got
everything that can go wrong with them has gone wrong with Peter's drives, so he's the world authority on them at the moment.
I can get some help. I was able to reach out through one of the TRS-80 forums, and I was able to purchase, I bought floppies from the guy, and he loaded it with lots of software. But that's when I was able to determine, okay, these brand new floppies that were just written and tested and sent to me still don't read. So it's definitely the floppy drives. But I do hope to get that done. And then I do have some 8-inch stuff for it. So that'd be nice to really get going. But
to be honest, in the restoration.
Sorry.
Go on, Ken.
I was just going to say, it's not definitely the floppy drives.
Okay.
Okay. So you've got floppy drives, you've got cables. Those cables went bad when they were new. So that's a possibility in the FTC because they were pretty drifty.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here against Ken and say it's probably the bloody floppy drives. So.
Well, it probably is, but I'm trying to save him here because.
Well, as you can probably
nobody likes to work on those drives.
Worst case, I've got a scope right there, etc. So, we can really dig down and see if we got the right, rotation and etc. So that'll be a lot of work, but I'm hoping it'll be a little bit easier than that. But
I'll shut up now. I can tell you, I'm in love with my floppy drives right now.
Oh, sounds like fun.
Anybody who's been watching Discord chat today, it's like, oh my God, I hate these drives.
We're trying, okay?
This is why floppy emulators are so popular now.
You can't get those working either.
And come on, Pete did try to warn you.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's something though about handling the 8-inch so I didn't have a TRS-80 when I was young, but I did have an Atari with an ATR 8000, which allowed me to have 8-inch floppy drives. and I had 4 8-inch floppy drives. And there's just, I loved the big floppy and putting in the, turning the, it's something great about being able to handle 8-inch floppies. I really want to get them working because it's just a joy. It's retro. It's what it should be,
You know, once
That's right, Mike.
once he gets it running and fixed, he'll change his mind. He'll want you. I go,
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
Go
Well,
text right here. It's definitely happening.
we look forward to the update on the next Trash Talk, Mike. Thanks
All
for
right.
that.
Yep, thanks.
Oh, all right. Let's see who's next. Rob Carnegie.
Sorry, just have to hear on my mic. Sorry.
Hey, Rob, how you going?
Not too bad. How are you?
Can't complain. What are you working on?
Well, not too much TRS-80 wise. This is my first time participating, and I'm relatively new in the TRS-80 side of the hobby. I've been collecting retro computers since they were not retro. Basically means that every time I bought a computer, when it became obsolete, I'd stuff it in my crawl space. And eventually there was just no more room to put them in, and I decided to call it a collection. But I picked up a TRS-80 Model 1 from Ian a few years ago. And I've got a color computer and actually an assortment of other things, but just haven't really done too much with it. I only have a cassette player for operating the Model 1, and I have yet to find a volume level that it likes. So I can type programs into it and run them as long as it's got power. But in terms of getting to the point where I actually have storage connected to it, that's sort of the next step.
I reckon it'll be volume 5 plus or minus a half of a volume mark. It'll always be in that range if your cassette read circuit in your Model 1 is working properly.
Well, that's the only other thing I wondered, is that I had heard that they were prone to failure, and I don't know enough about how it works to be able to figure out whether that's a problem with it or not. It was probably fine when it left Ian's place in Australia, but lots can happen during a long trip like that.
Well, you can always workshop that offline.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that.
The cassette circuitry is pretty reliable, right?
Is it? Yeah.
Unless you plug the power in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't mind, I'll just mention too that I live in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is about an hour's drive from Vancouver, where George and Peter live. And we started a retro computer club out here in 2016. And the majority of the people participating have been coming from Vancouver versus from Chilliwack. But it's myself and another guy were the ones that had the free time necessary to get it going. And of course, COVID has interrupted all of our activities, but we do have a smallish and dedicated retro computing interest out in the Vancouver area, and there does seem to be people that are hoarding machines of all types. I have essentially a whole room full of machines, mostly not interesting to TRS-80 collectors, but IBM mainframe and I have one fairly large IBM mainframe and a fairly large Wang BS mainframe computer that I've actually owned since it was new in the 1980s. There's lots going on here, and hopefully we'll figure out how to start to do more stuff online so that maybe some of the people out there in the world can participate.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Rob.
Yeah.
Who's next? Timothy.
Hello, all. Greetings from Pittsburgh. It's good to see everyone. I hope everybody's staying safe. Haven't been doing too much. I'm just coming out of the holidays, which is busy for me at work. But as some of you have seen on Facebook, I have 5 Model 4s in a room that I've been trying to put back together. The 2 gate arrays are working. I got to work on the other 3. Luckily, with lots of duplicates, there's lots of spare parts. Other than that, I did post on my YouTube. I found a deck VT100 that was manufactured in the town I grew up in. So that's sitting around waiting to get cleaned up. And finally, I really wanted to thank Peter for going through the interesting mystery and detective novel of the TRS-GP with the new operating system. That was super interesting to me. For those who have looked on my YouTube, I have some videos kind of like that in assembly language. So it was really cool. Thank you so much, Peter. Take care.
Thanks for that. All right, moving right along. Blair, how you going, buddy?
Hi, Mav. Hello, everybody. I haven't really had a whole lot hardware-wise going on with TRS-80s. The ancient PC that I use is my bridge to transfer files back and forth between my TRS-80s and the modern world and the internet. It blew its power supply, and I just got it in today. And before I came on here, I was beginning to work on replacing it. But aside from that, not a whole lot new to report.
That's okay. Always good to hear from you. Ira, how's the site going?
It's going fine, thanks. I realized I hadn't put up any of the meiosis quarterlies, so just put those up. And I found Mohammed, and I will destroy his last name, on LinkedIn. So I asked him for permission to make his software available and got it. So that's all up. I think you keep sending me some European people to make discs for. Do we have anybody out there in Europe with an infinite supply of 5 1/4 inch discs that wants to make discs for people?
Yeah, ping it to me, Ara. Give us a shout on Discord or whatever. I can sort that out for you. That's no problem.
Okay,
I've
great.
got shelves full of the damn things up here, so.
Okay, that's very helpful. I just made what I hope to be my last set. Somebody really needed a set. Postage is now $40 US to get from here to England.
And about 6 weeks.
So I'm hoping to stop that. Do we have anybody in Canada that wants to do the same thing for Canadians?
I've been doing a few, but it's getting expensive. It's like $25 for a box of the 5-10 floppies. It's getting expensive to ship that, and it takes forever to get there too.
Yes, it does. A lot of people don't expect the postage that's coming on them, so I wind up losing money on the deal. But it's fine. You know, I do this to try to help. But $40 of postage, that's a little much.
It was insane, $40. It only cost me $9 from Australia. I'd send them if people wanted, but I didn't think they wanted to wait 6 to 8 weeks for their discs. But
they're going to wait 4 from the US.
It's taken about 6 weeks to get stuff from the US to the UK, Matt. Never mind all the way to Australia.
Okay. Oh, okay. I was under the impression things were getting better. That's all. And I can't believe that to go over the border from the US to Canada is taking 4 weeks. That's
just ask Patrick. He sent me a mount and it went via Canada. Now it's lost somewhere in US.
I sent the box to Steve, a simple box. It took 4 weeks to get to Montreal, and then Canada literally put on the postage. We were laughing about this. The Canada says, this is not where you're supposed to be sending this shit. They send it back to Chicago. Chicago went, oh, this is for the United Kingdoms. And it took from that point 2 more weeks to get to London.
I don't know where it is at the moment, mate. It's still in the ether somewhere. We'll see if it arrives.
okay. So we don't even know if it's been crushed along the way. Is that?
You haven't got there yet?
No.
All right. Actually, I won't even go there because that's not even that much fun.
I don't understand what's going on with it, because we're getting packages to and from the States to Germany in 24 hours through customs. I have never seen it so good going from Europe to the US.
So the stuff that's been sent to me is going USPS to somewhere, God knows where in America. And now what they've started to do, what they've started to do, instead of shipping it normally, they're giving it to FedEx, and FedEx are routing it across. Now it's all beginning to arrive.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know what they actually, how they prioritize what ships. I mean, Peter there, Stinsky sent me a box from from New York. Was there anything special in the shipping, or just regular postage, Peter?
But that
Because I
was
got here in 5 days flat,
that
which
was
was
international priority.
okay. It was amazing. I can't believe I can't get anything from Australia to New York in 5 weeks, but I got that one from Peter. So I don't know. It's a crapshoot, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, even within the U.S., we're seeing a lot of delays. You know, Kyle sent me one of the TRS-80 emulators, and it's just paused for the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty random. I've ordered stuff in the last few weeks from like AliExpress, so that's in China. And I've had like the same day ordered 5 things. One thing came in 2 days, and everything else is not here yet, and it's been weeks. So
I have to manufacture it first. That's why. All right. Thanks for that, Ira.
I also have one more question.
Yep.
Before I turn it back over. We seem to have quite a few people on here that are knowledgeable enough to repair these TRS-80s. And I think I've asked before, but if people can let me know if they're willing to repair, I can put you up on the site, because there are plenty of people not quite as knowledgeable. And, you know, local is better. So if there are people out there, I'd love to put you up.
And I imagine you get a fair few people that are just lost and say, I don't know what to do. Can you help me?
Yeah, I forward those to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Just what I want to see when I'm eating my breakfast every morning. No worries. Love you, Ira.
Thank you.
Okay.
The same applies for us, Mav. If anybody in the UK wants putting up on the UK site for repairs, give us a yell. I've just got a new one recently from Shane, but other than that, there's virtually nobody.
Oh, well, we'll make this happen.
Ira, you can put me down for the New York tri-state area.
Cool. Thanks. All right. Steve Hall.
I did have a quick thing, if I could.
Okay.
The last person that just spoke said that he's getting stuff to and from Germany. I'm on my 8th week still waiting for something that's being held in customs in Germany. On the other hand, though, I've had all kinds of boards made and sent from China like in 2 days. So I'm having no problem with China board making, but I can't get anything back and forth to Germany. So how are you doing it? I'm using DHL.
FedEx International Priority. And I've had 3 packages in the last month go to and from. Going to is about 2 days. Sometimes it's 1. And when I got my first one in 1 day, I was just like in total disbelief. And then they sent me another one, and I got it in a day also. So
okay,
I don't know. It is business to business.
Okay.
And it's international priority. It's not the premium AM delivery, but it's FedEx International Priority.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
DHL has been kind of 2 or 3 days, I think, in the past. The PCB guys from China typically were using DHL, and now I think they've moved over to FedEx. I think I have to go back and check. I just did some ordering and I forget how it came, but anyway, I've had good luck, surprisingly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, Steve.
I think since last time this was over in UK hours, the baby's been born. So my model, I've now got a 16A and a 2A enhanced, according to Peter. So it's I say one's a white 16 and one's a silver 16, but they're both now beautifully working, which is nice. Both with emulated floppy drives, given what everyone was saying before about tendons. Although the shoe guard and that one actually does work, it works perfectly well, which is really, really nice. I've got a little bit of a project on, which I've been speaking to John Wiggins about in relation to what I'm going to do with them now that they're both working. I'll keep that a secret for a bit, and then we'll see if it works. It should be a bit of fun if it does. And the obligatory TRS-IO is in build at the moment, so I had got about 3/4 of the way through it before Pete announced that there was a TRS-80 board, so I've got one of those as well, Pete. So just binning these and moving over to the new purpley ones to go those, so they should be fun. But that's about all that's going on at the moment. Oh, and I've dropped you a note about Cat's Fred as well.
Yeah, we're working on a project. Someone managed to put 24 volts into a Fred, and it doesn't work. So we're assessing how many parts have been taken out in the process. So we'll keep everyone updated.
So Mav uses heat-sensitive printing when he prints the version on the thing, and that's the version of this. You can see how that chip got. Sounds a bit dead.
Yeah, anything that was silicon on that board said goodbye that day.
Yeah, well, it now boots. The system sees it. It reads the SD card, but when it tries to do a DR, it just goes. So we're getting there. But that's about it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Steve. Good on you. Okay, John. John, I'm fluent in BASIC.
Hello.
How you going?
It's going all right. The only thing I've really been working on is the keyboard adapter with Ken. So that's been the. Other than that, it's been just real life work, doing stuff to have rent and groceries. So
all the stuff that prevents the enjoyment of this hobby, eh?
It's a necessary evil to be able to enjoy the hobby, but this is the gadget. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got the plug on the front, and then the USB adapter bits here. So yeah,
that's the keyboard adapter for the Model 2 series, right?
Yeah, Model 2 16. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll work with all of them, all of the A and Bs, or
anything that has the
the classic DIN connector.
That.
Yeah.
You can use it with an adapter cable. There's also a header on the top of the board that you can plug straight into the VDG keyboard connector.
Does that give us the right function key usage for 3.3?
That's this bit here, right, Ken?
Yeah. Right.
Cool. Thanks for that, John. Have a good one.
Bye, John.
Quick question before somebody jumps off the. Wasn't there wiring differences between the Model 2 and like the Model 16 cable?
Model 2 and 16 are the same.
Not 16. I mean 12 and Model 2.
Yes.
Okay, so just be leery that it's not just a straight.
Right, it's not a straight. Yeah. There's
that's all I want to point out. Check
a conversion.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that when it's released, there'll be elaborate instructions explaining the difference and how to construct the necessary adapter cable. Yeah.
Right. I've already got that written, so it's when we're ready to go. It's
nice work.
Good reminder. Thank you.
Hey, Matt, we had Craig joined us late. He has a little something he wanted to present.
Oh, cool. Craig Skeels, how you going?
Yeah, going all right.
Go for it. You have the floor.
Turn the brightness down a little. I don't have a good zoom here for my camera, so you can see my Model 1 kind of in the distance there. But I
looks
put
pretty
on
clear
robot.
to me.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, in the small portion, it didn't look so big. Yeah, and all the wording's backward, but that's robot attacks opening, which I had even forgotten.
It may be
about.
backward to you, but it's the right way around to us. So
perfect.
Go for it. Yep.
Perfect. I don't present much, so yeah, I went out yesterday and grabbed a bunch of 40-pin cable, a crimper, and a few of these little things, and made my own cable for. That's the one part I never could find was where in the world did my cable go? And I've got 2 drives there. I don't know if the black one there is working. It's spinning, it's making noise, but the other one booted up just fine. So that was good. I stole that part from my color computer. I had all the stuff I used to use together, and I unplugged it from its controller, took a picture so I knew which way to plug it back in. And last night I had torn apart that whole expansion interface, and it was really dirty inside, spider webbing stuff. It had been in a basement for years and years. And so I've had my Model 1 working before, but I haven't actually loaded a real disk in like 30 years at least, I'm sure, which is kind of sad. But now I'm ready to figure out what I want to do, like, floppy emulation or something, so I can copy stuff off. I've got some of my own programs. I don't remember what all I have, but I know some of it. I created my own custom sector sizes and stuff. So it's going to be interesting seeing if I can archive that. If anyone knows if floppy emulation actually emulates the non-standard sectors.
Something like a grease weasel or a cryfox should be able to do that for you.
A what?
A grease weasel.
Weasel?
I'll stick it into chat, but it's
cool.
There's a lot of work on it.
Cool. So is that your original system that you bought? That you've
my dad did. It's
so it's a one owner system.
Basically, yeah. And I played on it most. My dad used it for business for a while, and then moved on to IBM stuff. And I was the only one in the family interested really in TRS-80 stuff. I'd done a lot of my own mods and boards, and I'm not even sure how to hook some of them up anymore because I didn't do a good job of documentation when I was a kid. So it's going to be fun actually having the physical hardware. I'll be able to, test things like that and, replace piece by piece if I want to test out the stuff that I have. I know I had an audio mod, both input and output, and I had high-res video on one of those proto boards with the 44 pins on the end, and I wired wired things up. Somewhere I've got something that shows me how it goes mapping from there to the 40 pins. But it'll be really interesting trying to figure some of this out and whatever I have time for to
That's great. If you got if you're unsure about things as well, send photos of modifications to the group, because there's always someone around who will recognize something. So that happens a lot in this group. So cool. Thanks for joining us, Craig.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey Matt, how come we haven't seen a Model 1 high-res dealie from you yet?
There's I've got one, but there's too many modifications to the board, and I'd hate for someone to bugger their motherboard trying to install one of these. The computers are too rare and going up too much in value. So I kind of encourage people, if they want to mess around with high res, just to get a 4 or a 4P. To be honest, if you find out in the wild one of the already converted high res Model 1s, they seem to be out there. They don't look any different from a normal one for the most part. So, nah.
Is that proper high res math or programmable character?
I think it's mainly programmable character was
Yeah,
how it
'cause
was
the
done.
ones I've got are both programmable character, and they're it is a bit of a hack.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's like 20 solder connections and 15.
Interestingly, I was talking on Facebook. I found some UK Tandy user group publications, and two of them have got the mounting instructions for that high res board.
Okay.
So I'll scan that and ping it over to you. It's a bit odd.
Cool. Always look forward to stuff arriving in the email. All right, I'm looking at the time. So we normally run these things for about 2 hours. So we're probably in the last half hour now. Any of the latecomers got anything they want to quickly mention before I move on to other people?
Hey, Mav, it's Joe. I could
Joe.
talk about my VGA board and the status of it and stuff. Some folks have got it. I think Ken's got one. I've kind of put pause on it right now because by random chance, 2 of the 3 folks that I send it to are trying to use it on Model 2s. So we're running into some interesting new behaviors in Model 2s. So if you've got a Model 4, I can ship you. I've got 4 of them ready to ship. I can ship you one. If you've got a Model 4, I know it'll work on a Model 4. If you're trying to do anything other than a Model 4, you either have to be patient while we work through how to get it working right, or just wait. So,
Joe, is that Model 4 gate array and non-gate array on both?
well, I have a non-gate array, and I have no way to test it. I assume it would work with a gate array. It should, right? Because all it needs is the dot clock from the J10 connector on the motherboard, so it should work. I thought it should work on everything, but what we found out with the Model 2s was that the left-right horizontal shift is wacky, and I think what Ken's probably running into is something tied to impedance mismatch, because he's having to pull wires from all over the motherboard instead of just the standard length cable that's in like the Model 4. So when I put it together, I only had a Model 4 to test with, and for the Model 4, I didn't need to do anything, but it's looking like that's probably what's going on with the Model 2s, that we're gonna have to do some kind of slight modification to get the impedance for the lines to work.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. So it sounds like it's still a beta project in progress.
Well, it definitely works non-gate array Model 4. That's what I've got. I know it works there. Anything outside of that, if it's a Model 4, it probably works. Anything Model 3 probably works. If you get much further than that, we're definitely running into some new stuff.
Cool. Thanks for the update. Who else we got here? Al. Hey, Al.
Hi, everybody. That's all I got for now. I'm new to this Zoom stuff.
This is your first time here?
No, I've watched it live on the web on YouTube a few times, but this is my first time joining.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. Always appreciate when new people come and join us. What sort of machine you got?
Well, I've got 2 Model 1s. One of them dates back to 1980 when I purchased it. I've got probably 4 Model 3s and about 4 Model 4s, some gate array, some non-gate array. I guess I hoard them.
Well, we all do. It's part of the fun of the hobby. You got to have spares.
Of course.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Al. Good on you. Hope to see you next time around as well.
I plan on being here.
Great. I haven't actually checked in with Eric. Eric, what are you doing?
Nothing really new right now.
No, just keeping warm down in snowy Texas.
It's like 74 degrees Fahrenheit today.
Oh, awesome.
And sunny.
I saw a news report that showed snow there or something, but I'd imagine it doesn't happen very often.
West Texas.
West
Texas.
Okay. Cool. Aaron, Aaron
Hi.
Brockbank. Hey, mate.
Hi.
Yeah, you're online. I can hear you. How's Newcastle?
Well, it's not quite as wet as what it's been, but yeah, warmish. Warmish. Now, I did see Craig before trying to say something, but he was muting his microphone when he was attempting to talk and unmuting it. So, Craig, would you like to point out what you were talking about before?
Well, sure. In the process of digging things out, I found something that a teacher at my junior high gave to me that she was an author in, called the Blue Book. It's a magazine that probably no one's heard of here, but I don't know if anyone has or not. It was edition 1.
Please do scan it. Might be the only one in existence.
Yeah, it might be the only one left. I can't find her.
What year is it from?
It's 1982. And
can you tell who published it?
Let's see. The editorials by my teacher, Karen Quillen. Actually, she was just a teacher at the school, but I hung out there after school a lot. They had color computers and the one place you could go and talk to other people who were into computers at the time. Let's see. Don Scarberry, I don't know who that is.
By the way, on the subject of newsletters, just want to let everybody know that we have a new edition of the podcast coming out, probably be released in the next few days. And our main topic is TRS-80 newsletters, collecting them and obtaining them, that sort of thing, and the value that they provide to the community. So look out for that.
Craig, those disk drives on the windowsill behind you, are those connected to your expansion interface on your Model 1?
Yes. Yeah, these guys are. These are some extra Coco joysticks and stuff in the way, but
and I bet the PC supply is powering the disk drives.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I did for my color computer. I had never done that for the Model 1, but I kind of figured that setup probably still works because it was just in a pile of stuff that last I knew it worked fine. So, and I was worried I might have some 35 track stuff or something like that. And I know I've got the double density and everything on the expansion interface. So
cool. Thanks,
but
Craig.
it worked.
Awesome. Who else we got? We're going to get through. Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully my mic isn't blowing you out of your seat this week.
Oh,
no, it sounds all.
All right, much.
You
much
found the
better.
volume control. Hey.
No, I switched to my headset.
Okay.
So I had this month. I've been working on my Model 4 non-gate array, fitting it into a 4D case. The sort of little insight that I gleaned from that: the 4D video card, which is the same as the 4P video card, the little digital one where the wire comes in from the side, that can be used in a Model 3 or Model 4, but you have to use the wiring harness out of the 4D and the contrast and brightness knobs. As far as I can figure out, and I am by no means an electrical engineer, part of improving the video quality needed on the 4P, instead of running the video signal directly through a rheostat for the brightness control, they actually run 5 volts through that knob and into the video card, and then that is used to scale the image information. And so you can't use the Model 3-4 harness. You have to use the Model 4D harness, but then you can use the small digital board. Hopefully
that explains why you get a big bright green raster when you plug the wrong one in, because it's feeding full voltage through to the video board.
That's
So-
exactly it. And your comment about that got me started looking at the schematics when I started figuring out where things changed. But hopefully that opens up so we can find 4D cases, which is just a 4 case with a different badge anyway.
Mm.
But it's
a 4 gate array, yeah.
Yeah,
The
let
bottom
us
of the
mix or match a little bit more.
The bottom of the case on a 4D is a little different though.
Oh, do tell, Jay. Go on.
Yeah, there are different I/O port cutouts on the 4D than on the 4 gate array or non-gate array, because I think of the RS-232 on the 4D is positioned differently, but I think you still can you can work one way. One board will go into one case, but one case won't go into one board. I forgot what the combination was, but
The 4D board will go into a 4 case. A 4 board will go into a 4D case, but there are a couple ports blocked. The RS-232 is one of them.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my machine, I could not put an RS-232 board into, but for a main board plus floppy controller, it works just fine. And then there are the 4D uses different screw positions for the floppy drive towers. The 4D case has screw positions for either style. The 4 case only has screw positions for the plastic style towers, not the metal tower.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, Jove.
Hey, Matt, I'm kind of curious. Who's Radio Shack Inc.?
I don't know, a bot, or who's the current owner of the Radio Shack brand name?
They're logged in. Would Radio Shack Inc. like to speak up and introduce yourself?
Possibly.
Okay, they're just monitoring.
It may be the real Radio Shack.
That's what I'm wondering.
Maybe they're gonna send us all a letter.
They're just watching to make sure we say trademark after every time we mention TRS-80. So, okay. Kyle Wadston, how you doing, buddy? Kyle, you're on. Kyle is away from the keyboard. Okay, Paul Burrell, Mr. Burrell.
Yeah, so what's going on? Mostly I've been busy at work, so I got stalled on a couple of projects I've been on. Just life happens. So
that's all right.
Other than that, I've about got some stuff I'm going to be sending out to a bunch of people, but that got delayed just a little bit. So
cool. All right, good to hear from you, and thanks for joining us today. Stuart Feldhammer.
Hey, how's it going? So this is the first time I've been here, and thanks for doing this. I am, I guess, a long-time TRS-80 fan. Back in the day, I had a Model 1, then a Model 3, then a Model 4. I don't have any of the machines anymore. I got rid of all the hardware, but I have a very nice collection of software, particularly games, from the Models 1 and 3. I mean, those are basically what they made the games for. And so I'm a big collector of games and software, and I try to play them on basically modern hardware with emulators, but with the original cassettes and the original discs. And always amazed when something actually works, which usually is always once you spend enough time on it. But the cassettes can be a little bit tricky just to get the right volume and everything else. But yeah, I just love this stuff, and I'm looking for all the stuff I don't have, which is a lot of stuff too. But I do a nice collection. I do have a YouTube channel also that with a couple of people subscribed and try to stream TRS-80 stuff every once in a while on there. So that's who I am.
yeah, I was with you the other night, Stu.
Hey Jay, how you doing?
Yeah,
I think Patrick was on one time when I was playing chess, if I remember correctly. I was playing micro chess, and he was trying to give me advice on which pieces to move.
Yeah, you were doing that Star Trek game, and I debugged it for you.
That's right. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're the guy
Crapped
that
out.
you're the guy that live streams the TRS-80 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, occasionally.
Cool. Cool.
That's me.
Late at night, though.
Yeah, that's the only time that my kids let me do it. So, a pleasure to meet all of you.
You too. Mav, you muted.
No.
There you go.
Yep. Okay. Stephen Burden is a new person, I believe. Stephen's burden is that he's muted. Nope. Kyle Wadston is away from keyboard. Peter N.
Well, since you guys are predominantly a Z80 group, and the only TRS-80 that I have left is Model 100, I don't have anything really to add this week. For this.
How's your Model 100 going, buddy?
Oh, it's doing okay. I've got I usually use the 102 because I like the thinnerness of it, but the 100 has the nicer sounding keys. But yeah, other than the last meeting that we had, I showed off the voice synthesizer and the joystick interface I made for it, but I haven't done anything since.
Yep. Okay. Well, we normally have Josh here, but obviously he couldn't make it this time. But always good to hear from the Model 100 guys. Is anyone here doing anything with Cocos? Because there's not one that I can tell Coco person here today. Anyone?
I've got a Coco. I play games with it every once in a while.
I've got a tower of them, but I don't do much with them.
I got one of the first ones, the gray ones.
Yeah. Are you probably painting it more than using it?
No, I've been trying to figure it out. It's very different from everything else from the 3-4 series.
Yeah, they're fun and they play a decent game, that's for sure.
Did we scare them away? They were some real luminaries of the Coco world here last month.
I think we did.
The Coco talk actually overlapped this by a bit. I found myself half an hour late joining because I had Coco talk on in the background.
Yeah. And theirs has no time limit, so it can run from anywhere from 2 hours to 20 hours, can't it?
I do have a Coco too.
They're great dice, the Coco too. All right, so we're nearly at the 2 hour mark. So just closing remarks. Anyone got anything they want to say before we call it a trash talk?
Yeah, I'll put in my 2 cents.
Yep.
I've got the Omicron emulation about halfway working.
For the CPM?
Yeah, whatever you want to run on it. I'm sure there'll be about 7 people interested in this greatly.
8. I think at least 8.
Well, I do have people who ask me regularly about CPM mappers on the TRS-80s, and we've got great big gaps in the software, which kind of is the other thing that prevents releasing a product. Like we've got a CPM mapper for the Model 3. Yeah, Peter's holding the one there for the Model 1, but we've also reverse engineered the one for the Model 3, which actually boots up to the prompt where you choose between CPM and TRS-80 mode, but we don't have the patched CPM operating system for the Model 3, and we're still trying to get our hands on that. But the good thing about the one that we've got for the Model 3 is it also has an additional 16K on board, so you end up with a 64K system on the Model 3, whereas the Model 1 version restricts you to 48K, which restricts your access to CPM software in general.
That's a useful bit of information.
I mean, I've got this one for the Model 3.
Yes, that's right. You lucky bugger. If I'd seen that, I would have bought it. But yeah, that's
Pete was just faster than the rest of us.
That's the VID-80 from Holmes Engineering. Keeps you 8 columns and CPM on your Model 3.
Pete, when are the Gerbers going up?
You know, it's got all the pins, but they're bent, like everything I get.
They don't put some foam rubber on it to make sure they survive. That's
They did, but they missed some of the pins.
It's no good. Send it to me. I'll fix it.
Yeah, we need to compare that to that blank Vid 80 board. I think it's a different Vid 80.
One. Yeah.
Is it? Did they have different versions of it? I don't even know.
Well, I think there were a couple of companies that had Vid 80 boards with the same name.
I'd have to go and look back over old 80 micro magazines and see what was available. But yeah, it'd be good to try one of those things out. All right, guys, we've just hit 2 hours. Any closing statements? Otherwise, we'll wrap this thing up.
I was just going to mention that I really appreciate everybody's help on the Discord chat that's trying to help me with this stupid floppy mess that I've got on my Model 4.
Yeah, yours was a real project, wasn't it? It's not just cleaning disk drive heads and replacing a capacitor on the power supply. Yours was a real chunk of junk, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was sitting in a barn or something for 30 years.
I just want to let everybody know, if you're not on the mailing list, shoot an email to trs80trashtalk@gmail.com. You'll get on the mailing list. You'll get all the updates on when we have the live shows. If you're not on the Discord, shoot an email to the same, and we'll send you an invite to the Discord. So we're not trying to exclude anybody. So just send a request, and you'll get an invite.
Peter,
We just don't want bombed again.
Can I ask you, Peter, real quick? What is the Discord?
Are you familiar with Discord?
No.
It's a chat app basically that was oriented towards gamers more, but a lot of communities have adopted it as a general chat platform. So.
Okay.
So, Pete, will you also announce the podcast on the mailing list as well?
Yes, we will.
Okay,
Everything Trash Talk will be on the mailing list.
Cool. And keep your eye out for the next release of Trash Talk 38. Is that right?
38 in a couple days. Yep.
38 in a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right then.
Just a note, Dusty, were you wanting to say something a minute ago?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a quick question, just for 2 minutes. 40 years ago, a guy called Woody Pope from Garland, Texas, devised a way of editing into strings graphic characters by using the level 2 editor. ET's been on to me about it, and he's found a problem with it, and I just wondered if anybody knew the answer. When you use the poke command to pop these graphic characters in as reserved words, if there's anything else on the line after, all the tokens that are used by the interpreter are changed to characters. And I've been watching it I've been running it on George and Peter's emulator, and you can watch it in debug, and you take something like, say, $1 is equal to null. You pop an asterisk in the first double speech marks. You go into the level 2 ordinary line editor, and you can type in something like let cont or something like that. Re-poke the double speech marks into the asterisk, and then when you print $1, it won't print let, it will print the 3 graphic characters, but it destroys every part of the remaining line by losing all the characters that the interpreter uses. For instance, like clear screen, CLS, it appears as CLS and not as the token. So of course it comes up then with the syntax error. I was just wondering if anybody knew why it always does it after, as opposed to you can have stuff in before the editing, but anything after it just destroys the line basically.
Dusty, is that on a Model 1 or a Model 3 emulated?
Sorry, this is on a Model 1 emulator, just running I've actually been running in George and Peter's Aculab floppy tape emulator, but I've tried it in normal level 2, and I still noticed ET couldn't understand what was going on. And as I say, you can watch it with the debug, and it just destroys the line. So it's nothing to do with the emulator. And I noticed in the 80, it seems Woody Pope was a prolific writer for 80 US. And this goes back, as I say, 40 years, September 1981. And he wrote a program, as I say, showing everybody how to do it. But I noticed that the 4 strings that he used were all on separate lines, right? So, of course, the thing was never noticed until you try and string them all together.
Well, you've confounded us all, so we'll we'll have to. I'd have to look at the listing to see what it's doing. I'm sure more than just myself will have a look at it when we get a chance.
It might, sorry, Mav, it might be the fact that that the editor repasses the line. That's why it works on each set of stuff inside the double quotes, and if you've got more than one element to the line, or more than one statement to the line, then it's going to trash everything after that because it doesn't quite know exactly what it's doing, because I don't think the editor was ever meant to do what is being done there.
And it also might behave differently if you were using a Model 3. The editor operates a little differently with regard to some of those little nuances. That's why I was asking which model you were running it under.
Try it on your Model 3, Dusty. Okay. You're muted, but I got you there. You know.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks, Mark. I say it's just it's ET who likes his one-liner programs, and of course we got this work. He got it working fine, and as soon as he started putting more stuff on it, it just crashed the line. It just keeps getting the syntax error, and he thought it was the machine playing up, because the thing looks perfectly on the normal sort of list, but as soon as you look at it in debug, you can see all the tokens have been changed to their real, just the letters that they represent. Anyway, so I won't keep getting more.
Okay. Thanks, mate. All right, everyone. Closing words until next time.
I have a quick one to...
Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, everyone try and talk at once. Yeah.
Yes. Stay safe, everybody, because this is nightmare. In the UK, it's a real nightmare at the minute. It really is.
Sounds
well, it helps. We don't pay attention to that in the US. Hey, Jay, if you want to know about Discord, I sent you a private message.
I want to.
All right, everyone.
Yeah.
He's the one who gave me the 8-inch floppy, so thank you, Peter C.
Everybody stay safe.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Ciao.
Bye.